Hold a lychee in your hand. The outside is rough, a bumpy red-pink leathery shell that looks more like a small grenade than a fruit. Peel away that shell with your fingernails, and what spills out is one of the most beautiful interiors in the fruit kingdom. Pearlescent, translucent white flesh, almost glowing, wrapped around a single glossy dark brown seed. The Chinese have called it the pearl of the Orient for over 2,000 years. The Tang Dynasty Empress Yang Guifei was said to demand fresh lychees couriered hundreds of miles from southern China to the capital, a logistical extravagance immortalized in classical poetry. In the next 7 minutes, we are going to take it apart and find vitamin C, copper, potassium, a class of polyphenols called oligonols, and one of the most unusual and surprisingly dangerous metabolic stories in any fruit on Earth. The lychee is delicious. The lychee is also one of the very few fruits with a documented dark side, and it is worth understanding why. Botanically, the lychee is a drupe, a fruit with a single hard pit surrounded by fleshy tissue and a protective outer skin. 3 distinct layers. The outer shell, called the pericarp, is bumpy, leathery, and pink-red when ripe, deepening to almost crimson. It is inedible. Beneath the shell is the aril, translucent white flesh, slightly firm, intensely sweet and floral. The aril is what you eat. At the center is a single glossy dark brown seed, smooth and almond-shaped, also inedible. The pearl-like appearance of the aril comes from its high water content and its dense cellular structure that scatters light. Each segment of aril is one large modified seed coat. The entire white flesh of the lychee is, technically, a swollen aril surrounding the true seed. The shell is the package, the seed is the cargo. The white flesh is the entire reward. Lychees are exceptionally high in vitamin C. 100 grams of fresh lychee flesh, about 10 medium fruits, delivers around 71 milligrams of vitamin C, which is nearly 80% of the recommended daily intake. That is comparable to oranges and higher than most berries. Vitamin C drives collagen synthesis for skin, joints, and blood vessels, supports immune cell function, enables non-heme iron absorption from plant foods, and acts as a circulating antioxidant. Because the lychee delivers this vitamin C in a small, easily eaten package, 10 or 15 lychees in a sitting will saturate your daily requirement effortlessly. The vitamin C also contributes to the lychee's gentle astringent edge. What would otherwise be pure sweetness is balanced by the slight tang of ascorbic acid.
Beyond vitamin C, the lychee carries a distinctive polyphenol fraction dominated by oligonols, low molecular weight polyphenol oligomers derived from the larger proanthocyanidins. Oligonols were first identified in lychee specifically and have been studied for their effects on circulation, fat metabolism, and exercise recovery. Clinical trials have shown that oligonol supplementation improves blood flow, reduces post-exercise oxidative stress, and decreases visceral fat in adults with metabolic syndrome. The pericarp, the bumpy red shell, is the most concentrated source of these polyphenols, much like the mangosteen. The flesh contains them in smaller amounts. Lychee polyphenols also include flavonoids, particularly Procyanidin B2 and epicatechin, both of which have well-documented cardiovascular benefits. The fruit is a polyphenol delivery vehicle with an unusually well-characterized active fraction. Lychees are unusually rich in copper for a fruit. 100 grams provides about 17% of your daily copper requirement. Copper is essential for iron metabolism, the formation of red blood cells, the integrity of connective tissue, and the function of several antioxidant enzymes. Most people get enough copper without thinking about it, but plant sources are limited, and the lychee is one of the more reliable. The fruit also delivers about 5% of daily potassium per 100 grams, supporting blood pressure regulation and muscle function. Add modest amounts of magnesium, manganese, and a trace of B vitamins, and the lychee fills a niche that is more mineral-supportive than most sweet fruits.
Here's the part of the lychee story most people do not know. The unripe lychee, green, immature, not yet sweet, contains 2 related toxins called hypoglycin A and methylene cyclopropylglycine, abbreviated MCPG. These compounds interfere with the body's ability to produce glucose during fasting. In healthy, well-fed adults, this is not a problem. In undernourished children, eating large numbers of unripe lychees on an empty stomach, however, it has caused a documented and tragic illness, episodes of acute encephalopathy and hypoglycemia in Bihar, India, and parts of Vietnam, primarily in the early summer harvest season when the orchards are full of fallen unripe fruit. The science is now clear. The toxin is real. It is concentrated in unripe fruit. It is dramatically reduced in fully ripe lychees. Eat ripe lychees with a normal meal, and there is no risk. But this is one of the few common fruits where the ripening state matters, not just for flavor, but for safety. There are dozens of cultivated lychee varieties, but the global market is dominated by a handful. Mauritius and Sahasradhara are common in Asia. Brewster and Mauritius dominate in Florida. The Chinese varieties, such as No Maichi and Guiwei, are prized for their thicker aril and smaller seeds. Fresh lychee is dramatically superior to the canned product on every measure that matters. Canning destroys most of the vitamin C, breaks down the oligonols, and concentrates the sugar in syrup. Fresh lychees are also extremely perishable. The brilliant red shell turns brown within hours of picking, and the fruit loses its floral aroma within days. If you find them fresh, in season, eat them that week. Frozen whole lychees retain most of the nutritional value and most of the flavor. Canned lychees and heavy syrup are a different food entirely. So what do you actually get when you eat a lychee? You get nearly 80% of your daily vitamin C in a handful of fruits. You get copper to support iron metabolism and connective tissue. You get potassium and modest minerals. You get oligonols and procyanidins, a polyphenol fraction with documented effects on circulation, oxidative stress, and metabolism. You get a fruit so prized that an empress demanded fresh ones couriered across China 2,000 years ago. And you get the lesson that ripeness is not just a flavor signal. In this one fruit, it is also a safety signal. Eat ripe lychees. Eat them with food. Peel them. Reveal the pearl, and taste the floral, slightly tart, intensely sweet center that has driven gardeners and emperors for 2 millennia.